In this section, we're going to cover all the things you'll need to create effective templates. This includes different template bindings to dynamically control classes and styles, as well as attributes. You'll also create dynamic elements using loops. And then finally, we'll learn to manipulate template elements and data using pipes and directives. Let's take a look at the different ways that we can manipulate classes, styles, and attributes for elements in an Angular component. So let's go back into the welcome component, and then I'm going to get rid of some of this here at the top. And then I'm going to change this to an H1 so you can see it better in the view, then get rid of this function here. So you can add a class to this just the normal way that you would in HTML. And so I'll add isLoggedIn class, and then I'm going to add this in the style sheet as well. And I'll just change the color to blue, and then I'll create another one for when you're not logged in, color red. So one thing that you can do is you can bind to a variable instead. So I'm going to create a variable in my class called isLoggedIn class. And then I'll set that to the one that I want to display. And so then back in the template, you can bind that here instead of the string. You can use curly braces like this, and you'll get that same effect. Now, another way to do it is you can bind to a specific class like this. Then you pass in the condition. So I'll say if isLoggedIn, then attach that class to that element. And then I'll copy that and then do the same thing, except if you're not logged in, then you will get the isNotLoggedIn class. So then you'll see when I toggle back and forth, it switches the class like that. You can also use a conditional in the curly braces themselves, and then you can output a different class. So that's one way to switch between classes, and that'll give us the same thing. Okay, and another way is to use ngClass, which gives you a little bit more options. So you want to pass in single braces, single curly braces like that, the name of the class that you want to bind, and then the condition. So I'll say isLoggedIn, then attach that class. Then just add a comma, and then you can do another class with a separate condition as well. And so that'll give us the same thing as well. And so now I'm going to get rid of all this, and I'm going to add an ID to this element called welcome message. That way I can grab that element in my class. So back in the ng-on-init, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to grab the element that I want to style using document.getElementById and that new ID I gave it. And so now I can style that element directly by using element.classlist.add and then the class that I want to add to it. You'll see the class is attached there. You can also use a tool called renderer. So here in the constructor, I'm going to inject a private dependency called renderer2, and I'll just name it renderer. And you want to make sure you import that from the Angular core. And so then below here, I can comment this out, and you'll see it's back to its original state. And now I can say this.render.add class, pass in the element, the class you want to add, and so that will modify the element using Angular's tool. And so you'll see we get that same effect. And so now I'll show you how to style these. So getting rid of this, you can do inline style the same as you would in a regular HTML document with the property name and then the value. And you can also do this similar to what we did with a class. So I'll get rid of this and then pass in the square brackets and say style.color. If isLoggedIn, then red, else blue. And so we'll get that same effect here. And you can also bind to something else. You can do style.width, for example, anything that is related to a style. For example, you could do style.background color. Another way is to use ngStyle. So you would pass the single curly braces and then the name of the style that you want to change. So for example, color. And then I'll do another condition. I'll say if isLoggedIn, red, else blue. And then we get that same effect again. Then going back to the class, you can do the same thing with renderer. you can do this.render.setStyle, pass in the element, the style that you want to change, and then the value that you want to change it to. This should actually be a string. And so that does the same thing. You could also target the element directly with element.style and then change the values however you see fit. Another thing I want to show you is how to bind to attributes. So I'm going to comment all of this out for right now. And I'm going to create a form. Inside of my form, I'll have a basic input with a required attribute attached to it. Then I'm going to have a submission button here. And so you'll see when I try to submit this button, I'll get that validation from HTML. Now you could also do this with Angular using attr for attribute .required and then pass in the condition. So you'll see we get the exact same effect, but now I can provide, say, a function here or a variable to make this more dynamic.